Shooter Race topic number 4 says African naming systems as explained from a Yoruba perspective. This is going to take us to Instagram. And on Instagram, this is from Wa'a Sere. I'm not sure of the pronunciation. He says, what happens in our societies today when women have names is totally alien to us as African people. Not even Africa alone, even among the Arabians. It is strange. A woman marries a Mr. Adigan and they instantly become Mr. and Mrs. Adigan. The woman becomes invisible just because she's married. This will irk many men, but as man, why should it matter so strongly to you that another human being entirely does not want to change their name to yours just because they're married to you? It's not a problem, actually, especially if she's willing, but at least know that this was never who we were. Colonialism, it was, which turned things upside down. So there's actually a video. Let's watch it, and then we'll discuss.
In a typical Yoruba setting, women don't change their names to that of their husbands upon marriage. And this is not a uniquely Yoruba thing. It is an African thing. In Africa, in the true unpolluted African setting, no woman was compelled to start bearing the name of her husband simply because she was married. In fact, in Yoruba land, even the idea of surname is alien to us. We never gave surnames. The practice of giving surnames and women adopting the names of their husbands upon marriage was started by early Yoruba Christians who considered being English more civilized than being Yoruba. They adopted that part of the English culture that made a woman drop a maiden name upon marriage and that turned the name of a father or an uncle to a family name. So today in Yoruba land, it is now so ridiculous that a person can be bearing Mrs. Taiwo without being a twin. The name Babarimisa, for example, is a name given to a posthumous child. But today we have a lot of Yoruba people who bear Babarimisa even while their fathers are still alive, because that Babarimisa name is not their own actual name, but a surname, a family name, which isn't a true Yoruba practice at all. We have been so westernized that we have lost touch with our own unique, ingenious, structured way of giving names. The coming in of these imported religions, you see, has so changed a lot of things about our society. It is now near impossible for a lot of us to have a clear picture of what a proper Yoruba setting was before the coming of the Abrahamic ways of life. Eshu has become Satan, and therefore we now have names like Eshu Kofo. Olua is now being used for God in our names. Oba, in a name like Obafemi, for instance, is now being interpreted as God loves me. Whereas in the beginning, none of all these were so. But now, back to the subject of giving surnames. In those days, no child, no Yoruba child is given the name of another person. Even if that person is your father or your grandfather, your name must be unique to you. Your name is about you, the qualities you possess, and the guiding of Akosejaye and the feelings of your parents determines the name given to you specifically. You are never to bear the name of somebody else. A child never bore the name of its father. A woman didn't bear the name of her husband. These are the categories of names we have in Yoruba land. We have Oruko, Oriki, and Orile. Oruko is further divided into two, which are Amutorunwa and Abiso. Amutorunwa is the name you brought by yourself from Orun by virtue of the kind of birth you had or the circumstances that surrounded your birth, while Abiso is the name given to you by your parents depending on how they feel about you or what they wish towards you. Now, not everybody will have an Amutorunwa because not everybody has a special birth, but you must always have an Abiso. Oriki, on the other hand, is an attributive name. Oriki is a pet name. Its intention is to make your Ori swell. It is intended to make you feel good spiritually. The nature of your character or some qualities that your parents have observed in you, even as a baby, determines the kind of Oriki that they will give to you. Names like Agbeke, Ashake, Ajadi, Ayinla, Alao, those are what we call Oriki. It was a norm in the days of yore. Every Yoruba gave Oriki, except the Ijebus. The Ijebus are always different. Now we have Orile. This is the kind of name that respected like a family name. Orile is in fact a family totem. You must have heard people call themselves names such as Ajadi Ogbo, Ayinla Esho, Akanbi Erin, Agbeke Okin, Alani Ekun. All those Esho, Ogbo, Okin, Ekun, Erin, those are what we call Orile. They don't stand on their own. They are always attached to the Oriki. And those Orile names, those totems, are always unique to particular families. No two different families bore the same Orile. So when a person has his own Amotoruwa, Abiso, Oriki, Orile, the person becomes distinct. The arrangement of those names is unique to you. It is just like fingerprints. No two person can bear those names the way you bear them. So under no circumstance was a woman expected to drop a family was married into another family. If she does that, then the Yoruba purpose of name giving has been defeated. One of the primary reasons we give meaning is so that you can have your own distinct identity, so that you can mention your name at any place, anywhere, and they will trace you to your family, to your lineage. Now, when you have changed your own family totem to that of another family, how will you mention your name in a place and they will trace you to your father? Your own name is supposed to reveal everything about you, your own identity, not about your father or your husband. By hearing your name alone, I should be able to know how you were born. For instance, did you come out with your legs first instead of your head? In which case your name would be Ige. Did you come out in a sack, your amniotic sac? In which case your name would be Oke. Did you come out with your umbilical cord twisted around your neck? In which case your name would be Ojo or Aino. And in the case of the Ijebu people, just Aino, because Ijebu ki nje Ojo. Like I said earlier on, the beautiful Yoruba naming system is such that I should be able to know your attributes simply by hearing your Oriki. Are you an undefeatable person like Adisa, or a strong-willed person like Ajadi, or a beautiful soul like Aduke? Your Oriki tells these things. By hearing your Orile, I should be able to tell the exact family you have come from. Ours is a very genius, balanced, unique way of giving names. I mean, that is way superior to the surname system we are practicing today. Nibika Somo Loruko, Yoruba Pe, Yoruba Gbon, Yoruba Sirewa, Wa Shere. In a typical Yoruba setting, women don't change their names to that of their husbands.
Sorry about that. So this is interesting and a little bit confusing because I see Trigger, it was a Trigger Happy or Afro Native World say, Trigger Happy say this is the same with the Akan. And I was under the impression that, and maybe it's a different West African group with a different naming system. I could be wrong. I do make mistakes. But I thought that in the Akan tradition of naming, I thought it was customary to name a child after a day of the week, etc. And there's a male name and a female name to that. But also, I thought it was customary. In fact, I could have swore I read a Camden paper on this podcast that talked about how it was important to name a child. Sometimes you named your child after your uncle, who was a great man in the village or what have you. So when he says that it's all original names, I was a little bit surprised, but I'm thinking that maybe that was just a Yoruba naming tradition. But Trigger is saying that that's also what this gentleman is speaking of is also a Khan. So I found that very interesting, man. If Trigger, if you can, you could clear that up for me in the chat. But I thought it was because I'll tell you why I really do think that too. It's a Caribbean thing. My father and them, when you check my father and his siblings, they tend to be named after some aunt or uncle. Like that, and that thing struck me when I read that out of the West Africa, and I thought particularly the Akan, that's what was done. You named your child after an ancestor, even a recent ancestor, like an uncle or something like that. And I remember thinking, well, that's the same thing we do. And going back to the names thing, the name of the week, the names of the days of the week thing, again, I think is Obale Campbell who pointed that out too. Like, you know, you go to the American South and you'll find people named Friday and stuff like that, you know, named after a day of the week, just like it was in Africa. So, if you give me a little clarity on that, that'll be appreciated. With that said, let me start with Amma or Cheryl Easy. Cheryl, what are your thoughts on this naming system for the Yoruba?
Yeah, I mean, every region has, their specificities, but I think the main takeaway is that, the names they have meaning. I'm not saying that, when people who are Caribbean and African American don't give their child's names, they don't have meaning, but I think when it's rooted in your own it's when it's rooted in your own language, it's different. And I think that's the struggle that we kind of have in in the diaspora, especially and I hate to bring this up, but especially in the Caribbean, in in the US. um we're so stuck, and it's not our fault, but we're stuck on English names. And I think it's all the more reason why it's important for us to, if you have the chance, change. You can change your name, or make sure your children have a name that reflects who they are. um you know uh it's a long process. I wouldn't say that's something that just, hey, get up and go change your name. Like, it's something that takes time and patience, and you got to really, it's puts a lot of thought put into it. And I don't think when we grow up in the West, that's not something we necessarily think about. I think it's something we would value if we were taught it, but we're kind of still stuck on English names. Well, I can give my child an English name and it means this. And I would say, well, you could also give them an African name and it would have more meaning because it's rooted in your culture, right? But that's kind of hard. That's where we kind of struggle to see the benefit of that. And so, just in closing, like, I named, well, my husband and I, we found out, he has Akan roots. We got some Yoruba, we got some Igbo. So what happened with our son is very unconventional. If you go to the continent, they'll probably be like, "Whoa, he has your son has an Igbo name, and he has a Khan in there. He has Ewe." But the point is that it reflects Africa, it reflects the different places that both of us are from. So, even if you get there, that's good. That's a good start. So, and I know all the legalities of changing a name, that can be very stressful. Trust me, I know. But my husband and I, we actually did it legally. But even if you can't do it legally, and even if it's just how you want people to refer to you, that's good too, because that's still a step in the right direction. So yeah, I'll end it there.
Appreciate that, Cheryl. Oh, but by the way, you just reminded me that when I said this occurs in the naming system I was referring to occurs in the Caribbean, I said I've seen it in my own family. You're right. You're absolutely right about one thing. Those folks have completely English names, but the African, or that particular West African convention of naming children after the aunts and uncles is still going on, even though, just like when I said someone in the American South might be named Friday. That's not, of course, that's not the African name, but it's the convention of using a day of the week or whatever to do it. Trigger Happy 262 Plus in the chat said, yes, that's true that days of the week are an aspect, but it isn't the only aspect, is what has to be understood too. So I guess that's the understanding for me there as well. I'm going to find that episode. I know I read a paper from Obadiah Campbell about it. And just quickly, one of the points he was making about that Cheryl kind of touched on, we name our children these British names, for example, these English names, right? Not knowing that this damn name means like the devil's spawn or some shit, like some wild shit that has nothing to do with us culturally and what have you. And we named them that. And what Campbell was saying in that paper at the end was kind of like, then you wonder why you have a disconnect between you and your child. You wonder where did they get this, these attributes from? Because ultimately, and I've said this for years on here, there's a power in naming things. When you take on the name of a lot of black folks don't see it, but there's a power in naming stuff. Just by you calling something what a white guy would call it, when your African ancestors had a different name, that's important. That's very important. Hopefully one day we'll learn that truth as well. With that said, let me hear from Black Steel next. Black Steel would say,
You know what? In times like this, when we get this type of knowledge, it makes me sad because it makes me realize just how much was taken from us and what our ancestors must have
I was
experienced.
thinking that too.
You know, how they were, put into a living hell, dragged across the ocean. They lost their families, their loved ones, their wives, their children, and then you took from them their very name. And not only you took their name, but you took the way they named each other. So it's almost like a piece of their soul was ripped out. And it makes me really understand why some of them resorted to suicide. Because you just taking the very thing that makes them human, the thing that makes them unique, and you just taking it all from them. Now your name is Mary. Now your name is Sambo. Now you're such and such. And if you get caught speaking your native tongue, you're gonna be punished for it. If you try to name if you have children with somebody, your children were just another piece of property. You can't even name the children the way in the way of your culture. So when someone explains the naming practices and the importance of it, it's almost alien to me, and it's almost like it's alien, but it shouldn't be alien to me. It's you should know this, but you don't because of what was done to your people. So I guess it's a sense of sadness and frustration. It's like almost like, say for example, as a child you were adopted, right? And you were raised with a different family. And then as you got older, you meet your real family. But you don't know these people. These people are strangers to you. They adopted you and you don't like, there was a young girl, it was a black girl who was kidnapped as a baby. I think she was a few hours old, and she was kidnapped by a nurse at the hospital. And that lady raised her as her own daughter. She had no idea the lady who was raising her was not her mother, right? Finally, like she was 22, her real family found her, and then the person who kidnapped her was locked up in jail. In her mind, her kidnapper was her mother. She felt nothing for her birth mother, nothing for her birth father. But she should, because they were the people who raised her, who carried her, nurtured her. But yet that was stolen from her. And that's how I feel sometimes when I hear um, the culture and the practices of our people. We should know this. This should be second nature from us, and it was stolen from us. So it just kind of, it just makes me feel um, sad in a way. I'm interested to learning more about it, but I feel like it's something I should know, and it was stolen from us. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you for that, Black Steel. I had the same thinking as well when the gentleman on screen was describing this, and I remember having this feeling, but feeling a little bit good at the same time that, well, we did retain some of it, but not in quite the way that you would want to retain it in terms of it being truly African names and stuff like that. But it's sad to think how much we lost and how much was really taken from us by a particular group of people that instead of getting away from these people, we want to move around them for a quote unquote better life. That's the side part for me, man. Just bringing it full circle. Shout out to Talawa Ododo. I haven't seen you in a while, my friend. He says, yes, there are African naming principles we run into in the diaspora. For example, the Maroons tend to have Akan type names like Kofi or, Coffee, as we would say. in the Caribbean. Man, good stuff from all of you tonight. We heard from Cheryl, we heard from Black Steel, I guess Buana dipped. But let me hear from Kofi next, I guess, on this. Kofi would say.
Good stuff. Yeah, I named myself Kofi. If you know anything about Guyanese history, one of the revolutionaries, his name was Kofi. But if I was to name myself in Ghanaian Akan tradition, my name would be Kwame, because I was born on a Saturday, not a Friday. But names are very important, and not to say this is an elephant in the room, but we basically name ourselves because of our environment, which is a Anglo-Saxon Christian environment. So with me, when I was a Christian, I used to be a diehard Christian, right? I found out my father had a middle name named Nathaniel, and kind of find out his father was named Nathaniel. So he was named after that. So I figure, like me, being a Black Christian and everything like that, and being a born again Christian, being proud of that, and spreading the message of Jesus and all that other stuff, I'm going to carry on that tradition, because I never knew my grandfather. He died when my father was in his 20s. So I'm going to name my first son Nathaniel, and then my daughter, I gave her middle name is Janice, and my son's middle name and my daughter's middle name is Janice and Genesis, after the first book of the Bible. Had them christened and all that, right? Because I'm no African. I'm just Guyanese. I just kind of look like them, but I know stinking African booty scratcher. That's to be my mentality, right? To the point, I don't know if you know, or like you're like a native New Yorker, you've been living here in New York. You used to have this Broadway show called Sarafina. And commercial used to come on all the time. I think it was about, they said there's a movie on it. I really want to see it again. And I remember growing up as a kid, I used to make fun of that because they were African. I'm like, oh, these African Sarafina. I think Sarafina is based, I don't know if they were South African or West African. I'm not sure. But it used to be a Broadway show for that. So this is my mentality. So coming into who I am, coming to conscious of who I am, in the middle of that, I changed my youngest daughter, her name, I gave her an African name, and my second eldest son, I wanted to give him an African name, but it was happening too quick, and I had to name him something. My youngest son, I gave him an African name. So my youngest son and my youngest daughter, they have African names, and that's what they are, right? And it's very meaningful, to the point where my kids could do whatever they want. My oldest son, he's like, Dad, I don't like my name no more. I want to change my name to because I have nothing to do with that. I don't tell my kids to be Christian. I don't tell my kids to be anything. I say, whatever you want to be, this is my perspective of what it is. You want to go to church, you go to church. You want to go to the mosque, go to the mosque. You want to go to the temple, go to the temple. Do whatever you want. But me as your father, as a Black man, this is how you're going to be perceived in those spaces, good or bad. But so names are very, very important. And during the early 2000s, they had like all these memes going around. That's one good thing about social media. They had this Englishman or this European man, like from the colonies or whatever, and he's smiling and he's pointing at you, and he says, "Ha ha ha! You still have my last name." And that was, white people was having fun with that. You know what I'm saying? So that up to this day, that was probably like 2004 or something like that. They had that meme going around, and it goes to show you that we have to be honest with ourselves, and if we want to really deprogram ourselves, it has to start with your name. But a name is a name. You know what I'm saying? It really doesn't matter, but it really means a lot to, especially coming in, if you have children and things of that nature, because they're a reflection of who you are. Because we got to remember, before the transatlantic slave trade, before the sub-Saharan slave trade or whatever, remember, they had to devalue you. Everyone goes around back in the days with your name, which is your last name, which represents your family. where you are from, right? And then your name. So it will be who you are, your people, your tribe, your land, or whatever, your family name, and then your name, because you're irrelevant. They need to know who you are and where you're from. So that's how people usually introduce themselves. If you look at read literature, look at all movies or anything like that, people refer to you to where you come from and who you are, then your name. We do it backwards now, whereas like it's your first name represents who you are, really, but it's your last name and it tells you where you're from. You know, so as African people, we need to really get ourselves I have a European name. My European name is a very, very Germanic name that translates into German and English. It means conqueror, ruler, things of that nature. My friend, if you guys remember way back when we were on my co-host one time, he's Jamaican, and he has his name is just a straight German name. You know, and as Caribbean people and people of the diaspora, when we want to change our names and do things like that, our parents kind of feel a little like, oh, why would they feel a little bit insulted? But it has nothing to do with that. Like when I told my father I'm naming my son Namar or Menes, all right, that's the first king of Egypt, of the two kingdoms. And my father being old school, very old man, I was like, hey, Dad, I'm naming my son this name. He's like, oh, boy, that's a nice name, boy. But why did you get that little boy a nice Christian name, no? Get a boy a nice Christian name. And I'm like, oh, okay, Dad. You know, because he's just a product of his environment, of how he was raised, and some of us are not going to change. It's up to us that know to move forward and take that legacy. And I'll end it here. Going back a little bit with the other prompt where we had with the whole Thomas Jefferson and everything. The reason I'm very secure on masculinity, and me crying doesn't make me less of a man. But when I was reading Chancellor William, Chancellor Williams' book on Black civilization, and I was reading what Queen Nzinga and all these other people had to go through and fight, I cried, and I was upset with myself that I was like in my mid-20s, 30s then, but to allow that and the pain, I'm like, all these things that our African ancestors did for us not to have these names, for us to maintain and retain our traditions, to retain our religion, to retain our identity. And then here we are just taking the names of our oppressors willy-nilly, thinking, oh, it don't mean nothing, you know. And to me, I'm going to be that vengeful aspect of our ancestors. We at least owe that to them. And I'll end it there.
Appreciate that a bunch, Kofi. And the chat has a lot going on this discussion as well. So make sure if you're watching the playback, look at the chat and get some more information and deeper conversations. But someone mentioned Islam. That's one of the issues when Black folks insert themselves into these or remain into some of these Abrahamic type stuff. Is yes, you'll get the good Christian name, but we tend to forget that, you know, a lot of things that Black folks would have done in the world, created mathematics and certain sciences and this, that, and the other, they have an Arab name. When you hear just making up a name, Hassan ibn Azul or something, the first type of person you think about is an Arab. You would have no idea that this is a Negro, an African, a Black African who did this, that, and the other. But they have an Islamicized, Arabized name, and that's why that's why it's important to name yourself and to name the things around you. There's a power in that stuff. When you hear Ibn whatever, you do not think of no Black person. You think of an Arab. I bet everyone who's listening to me right now feels the same. You know, and that's because we subscribe to, we continue to subscribe to these types of things. With that said, let me throw it to Brother Bakari. Brother Bakari, what are your thoughts on this?
Okay, talking about the names and what I ask people, because I know for me, if you do something great, let's say you do something great and you'll be remembered, and people don't know you, they just read your name. Would they know you African? I know with me they wouldn't. I have an old white British name, first and middle name. We don't have a true last name because your last name represents who owned you. It was like a tag. It was you was for Jones, if that's your last name. You were for the Johnsons. You were for the Thomas. We didn't really truly have names. Naming is very, very important. So I go through the process and I call myself Bakari. So I'm going through the process of change my name.
Did we
You're
lose
gonna
Brother
have
Bakari? Oh, okay. Go ahead, Brother Bakari.
we're gonna have people with the Irish tag. You're gonna have people with the German tag. That's what I call the last name a tag, because it's really not a tag, it's someone else's last name. And we still wear them today. Part of the reason our folks didn't know no better, like Black still said, we have been stripped of everything. They took your name from you, they forced you to forget. And those of us, our ancestors, and those of our ancestors that didn't forget, then in come the fear. Even if you don't forget, you're afraid because you don't want to be beat. You don't want to see your children beat a soul. You understand what I'm saying? So now we are stuck being with these names being British, Irish, Scottish, uh, Jewish, uh, German. You can think of damn near any European nation. Like you see, some of our women used to have the Russian first name, Sylvia. We don't care what we go through. All of Europe, you'll see some of us with a name from that, and now it's to a point where I remember Bill Cosby's pound cake speech. And I know people say, well, Bill Cosby, he was right. It's just the way he said it. He wasn't right. Because one thing he said in that pound cake speech that people forget, going out here naming your children these African names, we ain't no African. And I remember what Kofi just said when he said something about the movie Serafina, filmed in Africa, about, I forget what it was about, some school in Africa, starring Whoopi Goldberg. Years later, the same woman that went over there and starred in the movie Serafina over in Africa, she said on TV, well, Africans know I ain't no African. They know I'm an American. When they meet me, they know I'm not an African. But that's why our mindset is. We can call it brainwashing. We can talk about everything that happened to us all these years ago. We can talk about the residual effects now. But you know what? It seemed that we only listen to white people because we've had black scholars that come out and can talk about all of this stuff and try to show us a different way. And we can completely ignore the things they say, and we'll hold on to these names and we'll hold on to their culture. So what did we do? You got a so-called, a fake uh, revolutionary group. They didn't get no African names. They became Arabs. They told us we came from Asia. And damn near 95% of the people in the organization name is Muhammad. Muhammad. Y'all, and we all know. Do y'all know who Muhammad Ali was named after? Am I
You mean
still
his
here?
birth? You mean his birth name or
No,
Muhammad
no.
Ali?
Muhammad Ali. Do you know how he got the
Yeah, I
name
know who
Muhammad
Muhammad
Ali?
Ali in Egypt. Yeah,
He was, yeah, a Turkish guy. He
yeah.
went to Egypt and he destroyed Egypt, but he didn't know. And I remember Dr. John Henry Clark talking. He said Elijah Muhammad told him that was a great general that once controlled so much, and they were our people. Dude, this man, and he didn't know. I'm not knocking Muhammad Ali for not knowing. The person who taught him this knew, but didn't tell him the truth. So now you're named Muhammad Ali. You named after some white Turkish guy who utterly destroyed Egypt. Did to Egypt what Leopold did to the Congo. And we don't know. And these are the names that we are carrying around, and we will fight and we will defend our last name, our tag, or whatever we want to call it. So yes, naming is very, very, very important. We need to understand our name. Like my name ain't got no damn meaning. Mean somebody white. If you just read it and you don't meet me, that's what it means. Somebody white. Martin Luther King did great things. But if people stop showing Martin Luther King on TV, stop showing Martin Luther King on YouTube, just completely get rid of all Martin Luther King Jr. pictures, when you hear his name, would you know he's black? Would you know he's of African descent? Malcolm X, if we completely got rid of everything about him, would you know El Hajj Malik El Shabazz? Would you know he's of African descent?
No.
Neither one of them we would know. The great Marcus Garvey, would we know he's of African descent if you don't see him? So naming is very important. And on that, I'll yield the mic.
Okay, I thank you for that. And I'll tell you why. I really didn't remember that part of the pound cake speech. Because I was one who gave Colby some props on the pound cake speech, but I don't remember him saying we're not African and all that. So I got to go back and look that up. I appreciate that. I appreciate you bringing that point up. With that said, Buana, you heard everything everyone else had to say. What say
Yes,
you to
sir.
all of
So here's how I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna start from the bottom up. So the gentleman in the video, initially he talked about the importance of naming. And I thought about that, and he said that why do the women have to get rid of their names when they get married? So in the Caribbean, what the professional women do in the Caribbean right now is they choose not to get rid of their familial names. What they do is hyphenate the names. So my sister right now, instead of carrying the name of one slave master, she's carrying the name of two slave masters. She's going by a title of Doctor, her familial name, and then she's carrying her husband's last name. And I thought that was hilarious. You get now you get two slave masters on your back instead of one. But the idea is still there. She didn't get rid of her familial tie. She just included the fact that she was married, and she included her husband's last name. But both of these are British last names, so you're still in a problem there. And for my Nigerian brethren, for my Nigerian brothers, I am finding it very difficult when you all brothers say and talk about it in terms of naming, and naming is important. When one of the presidents of Nigeria was named Jonathan Goodluck, or Goodluck Jonathan. First of all, Goodluck is an English name, and Jonathan I think it's a Jewish name, Jonathan. So the Yorubas voted for him to be president of Nigeria one time. So if name wasn't so important, why all they tell him to go change his name to? Needless to say, one of my good friends when I was in the United States, the Africans, the Nigerians change their name all the time. My favorite sister, her name, she used to go by Barbara Bosa. Barbara. She changed her name. She anglicized her name because she was coming to the United States of America. I say, Barbara, what's your real African name? So I'm saying keep it consistent because it's confusing me. Is naming important or is it isn't? Or is importance in naming only important when you in Nigeria? But when you come to westernized countries, you got to change and anglicize your name. Which is it? You're confusing me. Because
Vonna, is it fair to say black people have to code switch? You don't think that will transfer into names? Because that's one of the reasons why my mother named me a particular name. She says It sounds very English and polished. So if I need to
I
go,
know,
yeah.
Kofi. I know. I understand. Listen, man. I understand that you have to do what you need to do when you have to go into certain countries. But I'm saying if you are talking about the importance of a Sikh, see, Mamdani right now didn't change his name to Mo. He didn't change his name to Mark or Bethel or Smith. No, no. He tell, in fact, in trying to become mayor of New York City, he told the last mayor, say, get my name right. The name is Mamdani. And he made the last mayor, I forget his name now, the white guy, the Italian man now. See, he made him pronounce his name correctly. His name is Mamdani because he understands the importance of his last name. He didn't anglicize his name because people gonna respect you. If you respect yourself, people gonna respect you. This is the reason why some people are drawn towards. Well, in the Caribbean, we are drawn towards a certain thing because Brother Bakari raised an important, very important issue. Most people in the Caribbean don't know who Winston Rodney is. They don't know who he is. If I was to tell you who's Mark Myrie, who's Mark Myrie, most Caribbean people wouldn't know who the hell Mark Myrie is.
Ragamuffin,
But
don't
if,
be silly. Put a rubber
but
on
if
your
I
belly.
but if right, so but if I say Buju Banton, if I say Burning Spear, everybody know who Burning Spear is. So we in the Caribbean, and this is important, has taken on or gotten we have decided to rename ourselves, practice agency and rename ourselves and define ourselves as who we are. So people gonna make clear when you look at our gravestones, they'll be distinctive because Mark Murray is an English name and Brother Bakari is right. You will be confused that the person in the ground was actually a white person. In fact, in 100 years, Martin Luther King will probably be a white person because he's indistinguishable from anyone else, any other king that exists in America. You could easily make him a white person. But if you say Buju Banton, that is distinctively different from anyone with an English name. Or Vernon Smith. That is a connection with Africa that you can't disconnect from that. So it is important in naming, but I'm saying that the brothers who talking about these things need to be consistent. Not because you are in the United States of America or England or Canada. Now naming ain't important. So when I used to go by Kofi, now my name is John. John. Be consistent. It's not about what you say, it's about what you do, what you're practicing, even under pressure. When you're being under pressure or pressured, either you could stand for what you believe and the principles of what you believe, or you could decide to betray them. Now I understand eating is important. I understand living a good life is important. I understand doing the long-term thing is important. But the reality, it comes down to that. Ultimately, either you could be who you are or you're not. Or you're not. And I say to this brother, if you telling us the importance of naming, practice, and consistency, because enough Yorubas in the United States of America going by the title John or Betty or Barbara. Barbara is not a Nigerian name, Yoruba name. Please. But I'm trying to be critical here. I'm just trying to make clear some things that are unclear. You can't tell me about the importance of something without actually practicing it, even when you're under the gun. If you believe in something for real. But that's just me. That's just my position on it. But like I say, I am not trying to be critical of anyone and any particular position. And sometimes you're in compromising situations where you gotta eat. So I understand that. But I'll leave it there. Just to be brief.
Appreciate that, Buana. I do have a quick follow-up, and I think that was Bakari wanted to speak. I'll let you speak in a second, Bakari. Real quick, the follow-up question is, should we make that a practice? Like it was mentioned in the chat, Trigabi said, to be fair, I read an article about Asian immigrants in America changing their names to be more English to better assimilate. Lots of others do it. Our people need to stop doing it. But my follow-up is, should we have two names? Because like Buana just pointed out, yeah, you gotta live, you gotta eat this, that, and the other, eat in another country, under another system. But should we have should we have our African name as well? Like a lot of us have an African name that we use around the internet and stuff. But should we have an African name that we officially have? That's our family's name, but we present when we have to, when in Rome, whatever. Should we do that then? I mean, that's just my follow-up question. But first, Brother Bakari wanted to add something, and then anyone who wants to answer the follow-up question before we go can answer. Go ahead, Bakari.
Hey, when you said what's the guy named Bawana who you say told him say his name right?
What you talking about,
Magdami.
brother?
Magdami.
Oh,
So
Mamdani. Yeah.
He's an Indian guy.
Yeah, that's Kofi. That's Kofi Mayo.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
He was raised in
yeah,
Uganda though. He's like Indian, but he was raised in Uganda.
yeah.
okay, but the reason I asked that question, right? The reason I how these people thought about East Indians, and they said they were the hardest people to break, far as making them leave their culture. Say it didn't make a difference what you did to them, they wouldn't they wouldn't give up their culture. Don't care what you did. Now they wouldn't put in a position that we were put in. They were oppressed over in India, like the Africans and Nigerians, Ghanaians, the ones that didn't get put on a ship, was oppressed over in the countries where they were from. I'll tell you, man, I even meet some from there that would tell you their name is James, or I have a biblical name, or their name is they have some uh they have some Arab name. So I'm just wondering, was it easy for us to forget about our culture under the threat? And I ain't talking about the people that was enslaved, that was having their kids sold here, or their kids was taken from them over there. But I'm talking about even on your land, when you meet some of them, I say, man, what's your African name, dude? I say, shit, we got enough white names, European names here. But what's your African name? We want to know. That is my name. I'm sorry, my man. His name was like James. He said that was his name. But some of them use those European names, and you tell them, most of them, you tell, like, look, dude, what's your African name? I want to know about what we from. And then they would give me uh their name, their tribal name. But it's been some that even from over there have those have those European first names, and or they gonna have the biblical name, or they gonna have an Arab name. People call it a Muslim, I guess, but that's a religion. Yeah, I guess if they can have a Christian name, you can have a Muslim name, but that's what they do. But naming is important. But like Bawana said, if naming was so important, why did they vote in John, whatever the dude name, whatever Bawana said his name was? But hey, they may have not voted me in. They may have taken it. I'm just saying I don't know, but we do need to work on names, and we do need to be consistent with the naming practice, uh, and having another name like Koku said. We do, because for the most part, Black Americans or African Americans, but especially Black we damn in all honesty, the majority of us, man, we just dog skinned white people in all honesty over here in the United States. Majority of us is just dog skinned white people. And we're not, most of us is not looking for a name change. But on here on this panel, we are. And I think we do need to be consistent, and we do need that coach a year to make.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, we do need two names. To what Trigger Happy is saying, growing up in Queens most of life, you know the dynamic of Queens. There's a lot of Asians, Hispanics, and I have Chinese friends and Filipino friends. I have them, they have English names, but their last name is obviously a Chinese name. They'll have names like David and John, but the last name would be Chen, Louis, Lou, Lee, you know. So they'll never, I mean, obviously they went through something different, but they are pretty well aware of themselves. And when you ask them, okay, man, what's your Chinese name? You know, they'll laugh, but they'll tell you their Chinese name. So everybody, when you're in white America and you're not classified as white, you know what I'm saying? If your parents know what the game is, like, all right, we're gonna give you a white name, but then this is your name. Like my youngest son, I never call my youngest son by his first name. The only people out of my children that has the literal African name on their birth certificate is my youngest daughter, right? My two youngest sons that have those names, I don't call them by their quote unquote government European name. I don't. Sometimes I'll go to parents teachers and I'll say, yes, so Mene, and then they like, oh, who's that? Oh, my fault. That's the name we call him at home. So there's always a middle name. So I mean, I'm supposed to change my son's middle name because I was told that if you give your child a middle name, it's easier to change it than not give the middle name. I was telling my son this like 2-3 days ago. Because he's like, why did you get that? Why did you give you your name if it's not an African name? And I said, well, I don't know really what to name you then. And my wife's cousin, that's, you know, also conscious or whatever, she's like, nah, that's the same thing happened to my son. Just give him any name. It will be easy for you to change it later. So, but yeah, it is important because you have to understand our children need to understand that in this society we have we have two identities here. We have the identity that we want the white America to perceive, and we have who we are really as people. But I do agree with Juana, like, hey, look, my name is Mondani, love it or leave it, and that's it, and that's also commendable. But if you feel free, you know, but if you feel more comfortable, like, hey, look, I really don't want to do that, that I also understand. You know, you do what you feel is best for you. But I do commend people, especially when we be around white people, and especially when they have like an African name. You see an African name, and it'll have all these long letters and stuff like, oh my gosh, it's so ethnic. Oh my God. But here they are, they're reading German names. You know, German names are ridiculously long. They got like 20 letters to one German name, and they feel like, oh, I'm so cultured, I can read this German name. Like, nah, get out of here. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, we have to stop seeing, you know, us through the lenses of white people. Pretty much that's it.
Kofi. One last thing. I gotta be done. Marcus Vincent Thomas, which is all Christian names. He is going by Tariq Allah Nasheed. None of them are English. None of them are Christian, but he seems to be doing very fine. He seems to be doing okay. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't understand that. You know, he making fine money over where he is at, but he is not using any Christian names. But I'll leave it.
Nice one. That's true. Facts.
Is there any last thoughts on this prompt from anyone? Okay, so what I like to do, I like what Cheryl said in the chat. She said we should ask Black people, well, what's your real name? And I think that's something we should do. I think those of you who have another name, bring your African name. Come next week. You know, let's start that tradition around these parts here. Kofi Street, me, Alma, Brother Bakari, etc. But bring your African name next week. Let's start that as a thing around these parts. But before we leave, this is the last talk for the night. Before we leave, you know what I like to do? I like to give a shout out of anything positive you encountered in your world or in the wider African world, man. Let's do our shout outs this week. Let me just go down the line. Black Seal, what would you like to shout out this week?
Oh man, I really don't have anything to shout out this week, man. It's just I want to shout out the panel for being here. You know, great shout out you, Koku, for being a great host as usual. That's really it. Hope everybody has a great week coming up. Take it easy. Hope to see everybody back next week.
Yes, sir. Appreciate that, Black Steel. Alma, what would you like to shout out this week?
I'll shout out my husband Talawa Dodo because he's the one that actually introduced me to you guys, Shoot the Breeze. So yeah,
Oh, your
shout
husband
out
is
to him.
Talawa?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Thanks for making that connection, man. Shout out to Talawa. But go ahead,
hmm
Alma, go ahead.
No, yeah, that was the only shout out.
Oh, much love for that. Thank you, Talawa, for introducing your lovely wife to us, who comes up on the panel, gives her thoughts and stuff like that. I do appreciate that, Talawa. Uh, with that said, Kofi, would you like to shout out this week?
I really don't have anybody, but I want to shout out to all the black people in America, the black Americans, anyone that's considered black in America. I just saw something from Afro Think Tank's cast about some black guy in a bar and a whole bunch of white people jumped him. And nothing really is happening. You know, there's a bar that he used to go to all the time and things like that. And he was just questioning the bill, and I heard they stomped the dog shit out of him. I heard he was holding his own, but at the end, you know, I think it was like 1 and 6 white dudes he's fighting in the bar. You know, so you got a lot of Neanderthals, snow beasts here getting emboldened. So, you know, I just want to give a shout out to black people in America and their resiliency. You know what I'm saying? From the plantation to now, you know, it's a lot of shit, you know, we gotta deal with. And I just want to shout out to black people, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for that, Kofi. Thanks for being here as well. You, Alma, and Black Steel. Brother Bakari, what would you like to shout out this week?
I want to shout out the month of August, Black Business Month. I want to shout out black businesses. I'm going to shout out everybody who's going to participate in supporting black businesses. I'm going to shout out everybody who did not participate, who's not participating in the fake boycott. Let's boycott African brain shops and Caribbeans and Haitians and Jamaicans, which I thought Jamaica and Haiti was in the Caribbean. But hey, they separated y'all. I'm going to shout out everybody who's not participating in that boycott. And I'm going to shout out all the shout outs I will be shouting out in the future.
One love to you, Brother Bakari. Thanks for that. Last but not least, Juan, what would you like to shout out this week?
Oh, shout out to Cheryl East. I didn't know Talawa was your husband. You know, I think Talawa is from Trinidad. I think that shout out to my doubles. You know, my doubles is the best. The doubles is delicious. But shout out to you, Cheryl East and Talawa. You know, he's a brilliant brother, very, very intelligent brother. So shout out to you and him. Shout out to Jamaican. Okay. Shout out to oh, shout out to the Epstein files. And I'm loving the Epstein files. The Epstein files are so beautiful. I know Kofi would agree with this. But shout out to the Epstein files. The Epstein files is making something was unclear very clear. And I am eating my popcorn right now. I'm eating my popcorn, enjoying the Epstein files. What's the lady's name? Shout out to Ghislaine Maxwell. I hope that, well, she is not going to be able to testify and tell the truth. But needless to say, shout out specifically to Epstein. The Epstein files is my favorite. It's my favorite. Yeah, even though they doctrine everything, every day that they can hold out, they doctrine everything. But shout out to Epstein.
No, they shredding it. They shredding everything.
Oh,
no, it doesn't exist anymore. There's nothing to shred.
Oh yeah.
No, he released it, but his name has been redacted, and on top of that, they made the Smithsonian remove the exhibit that talks about presidential impeachment. So the president, not being mentioned in the exhibit that talks about. So the only presidents who've been impeached was Johnson, Nixon, and Bill Clinton. So Trump didn't. Man, this is hilarious.
You know he's about to arrest Obama, right? Because you know on Hillary Clinton, the Russia thing. He's saying it's a hoax.
Oh yeah, yes. To my liberal-minded brothers, I want y'all to get ready because y'all gonna be very upset when President Trump arrests Obama. So don't be surprised about that. He's gonna get arrested. He's gonna get arrested because this petty president is gonna try to practice petty politics, and because he want him to like have that like what is the prison picture. You know when you get arrested, you have the picture. He wants to arrest.
But that's true. I know we're talking legalese. What would the indictment be? You just can't arrest somebody. You're like you need.
Oh,
I mean, he
because
has his own
he was
Department
working
of
with
Justice.
it. They're gonna make up something. Tulsi Gabbard is gonna make up something, and what's it, Bondi? What Bondi? Bondi is
Cash
gonna make up
Patel.
something. They're gonna make up something. It's a gangster government. So, like I say, shout out to the Epstein files, and to make what was unclear very clear. And get ready. What's gonna happen to Obama? It's gonna be a very unfortunate thing. Very unfortunate. But just hold out. It's only 4 years. It's only 4 years. But shout out to all the brothers and sisters on the panel who've contributed tonight. Very, very good conversations with all of the brothers, Brother Bakari and Black Steel and my sister Cheryl Lees and Kofi. Shout out to all y'all. Y'all been valuable contributions to the panel tonight. And even MG2. MG2 is an elderly gentleman. But when MG2 speaks, you have to be able to pass through a lot of the things that he says, because he speaks in a way that is historic and is very well informed, and he's speaking topically, but he's speaking also historically. So to get a lot of the things that what he said, you got to listen very carefully. But shout out to him as well, and all the brothers and sisters. Shout out to all of the listeners who've been listening in and making valuable statements tonight. So that's where I'll end there, and I'll just leave it there. Shout out to everyone.
Appreciate that, Juana, and everyone else. Yeah, my shout out is to Julian Brown. That's the young black guy. We talked about him in recent weeks too, who he's the inventor of plastiline, the gasoline derivative from plastics. He went missing for a little while there, and his family and friends were worried. I don't know if you guys heard that. Family and friends were worried, but he did turn up to be fine. I guess he kind of went into hiding because, as we talked about some weeks ago, he felt like he was being surveilled and stuff like that. But shout out to him that he's still alive and well. Hopefully that brother will find himself somewhere in a black nation, somewhere where he could feel a little bit more protected, a little bit more safe while he does the work that he's doing. Also, shout out to all of you guys who join the panel every week. Shout out to Cheryl and her husband. So when I said I haven't seen you in a long time, to Taloa, he knew damn well he's here just about every week himself. His wife is here representing. So shout out to all of you guys, man. Black C, you want to add something?
Oh no, nothing to add.
Oh, okay. So with that, man.
I just want to add one thing, like my number's in the private chat because I really like to get in contact with you, brothers. So just off the show, so we can really build. So my number's in the private chat for anybody who wants it. That's all.
I'm gonna shoot you a text, Mr. Kofi.
All right, cool,
Yeah,
Black Steel. Thanks.
I'll shoot you a message as well. No, but I have your number already. With that said, man, we should be back next week.
Oh yes, Coco. You could give the brothers my number if they want my number as well. But to contact me, it's always you got to use what's the thing, Coco? What we talking? WhatsApp.
Yeah, WhatsApp.
You can call me for free. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. I'll do that, man. Plus, well, we're all on the Discord, so we could exchange those numbers there as well. All right, guys, this has been a great one. Absolutely great show tonight. We'll be back next week, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Either myself or Jackadero will host. Shout out to Anthony McPhail as well. I saw him in the chat, but he didn't come up. I hope everything is fine with him and his family. And I'll see you guys next week. You guys do take care. Stay black.
Thanks for listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast with your host, Koku. If you like what you just heard, we hope you pass along our web address, bittermedicineblogs.com, to your friends and colleagues, and share our show to all your social media. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts. This has been a KWAZ radio production. Join us next time for another session of the Bitter Medicine Podcast. Follow us on Facebook at Bitter Medicine Show, Twitter, Bitter Meds, Tumblr, Bitter Meds, Instagram, Bitter Medicine.